I had been mother, nurse, and stone, the one who held the world alone. But you saw past what time had spent and called me the main event. I was not too late for love, not too old to be chosen, not too broken to become a garden still unfolding. You did not steal me from my life, you made the walls grow wide. For the first time in 11 years, hope felt like the truth inside. They took our laughter from a train, turned my name into their shame, called me a storm, called me a scar, like age could hide a woman's heart. I ran back home to what I knew, but every rose remembered you. Then your letter found my door, and I could not be small anymore. I had been quiet, I had been erased, I had learned to call the silence grace. But you saw the woman I had left, still breathing in my chest. Too late for love, not too old to be chosen, not too broken to become a garden still unfolding. You did not steal me from my life, you made the walls grow wide. For the first time in 11 years, hope felt like the truth inside.
Marguerite Sydney had packed practical shoes, blood pressure medicine, compression socks, reading glasses, moisturizer, peppermints, a travel journal, and exactly 11 days' worth of common sense. She had not packed for romance. She had not packed for foolishness. She had certainly not packed for a man. At 67 years old, Marguerite had learned that hope was something a woman handled carefully. Not because hope was wrong, but because hope had teeth when it arrived too late and looked too beautiful. She had lived enough life to know the difference between excitement and warning. Excitement made a woman smile at her reflection. Warning reminded her that mirrors could lie when loneliness was standing too close. So Marguerite packed practical shoes. She packed her medicine, she packed her journal, and she packed no expectations. That was what she told herself as her plane descended toward Japan, the clouds opening beneath her to reveal Osaka in silver lines, soft haze, and water glinting beneath the morning sun. Osaka. She had not planned on Japan at this stage of her life. Then again, there were many things Marguerite Sydney had not planned. She had not planned to retire from cardiac nursing and still wake some mornings hearing phantom monitors in her memory. She had not planned to become a grandmother of 6 and realized that grandchildren could make a house loud enough to feel young again. She had not planned to grow tomatoes with more patience than she had given some adults. And she had certainly not planned to spend 31 years married to Raymond Sydney, only to discover, slowly and then all at once, that a woman could vanish inside a respectable marriage without anyone calling it disappearance. Raymond had not destroyed her loudly. That might have been easier to explain. He had not been the kind of man people warned daughters about. He paid bills. He attended church. He remembered anniversaries when reminded. He spoke calmly in public. He was decent in the way people praised when they did not have to live beside the coldness. But somewhere over the years, Raymond had stopped looking at Marguerite as if she was a woman. First, her laugh became too loud. Then her dresses became too bright. Then her stories became too long. Then her sadness became dramatic. Then her anger became unnecessary. Then her silence became convenient. By the time another woman appeared in the spaces Raymond had emptied, Marguerite already knew the marriage had been dying quietly for years. The divorce was not loud. That was the humiliation of it. No broken dishes, no screaming in the street, no dramatic scene where everyone finally understood. Just papers, boxes, a house that suddenly echoed. children who tried to be kind, church people who said, God will see you through, while pretending not to wonder what exactly had happened. And Marguerite, standing in her garden one morning, wearing gloves and holding pruning shears, realizing she had survived a marriage that made her smaller. So she rebuilt, not dramatically, not in a way that made inspirational posters jealous. She rebuilt with groceries, prayer, doctor appointments, birthdays, grandchildren, church services, phone calls, tomato plants, and one stubborn rosebush that refused to die no matter how badly winter treated it. Her life became peaceful, useful, full. But somewhere beneath all that fullness was a room she had stopped entering. The room where she was not mother, not nurse, not grandmother, not helper, not emotional anchor. Woman. Marguerite did not visit that room often. It felt safer that way. As the plane touched down at Kansai International Airport, she whispered a prayer under her breath. Lord, thank you for safe travel. Keep me wise, keep me kind, and please do not let Vivian put me in anything with sequins. Her phone buzzed before she even reached baggage claim. The group chat name appeared. Grandma's favorite blessings. Her grandchildren had named it themselves. Nia wrote, Grandma, did you land? Caleb wrote, bring snacks. Jade wrote, bring me snacks. Miles wrote, take pictures of the trains. Zuri wrote, are there cherry blossoms? Eli wrote, Grandma, don't fall in love in Japan, LOL. Marguerite stopped walking in the airport and stared at the last message. Then she typed, Grandma has landed safely. Nobody is falling in love. Snacks will be considered based on behavior. She pressed send and tucked the phone into her purse. Nobody was falling in love. Certainly not her. Certainly not at 67. Certainly not in Osaka. Certainly not on a trip planned for her younger sister's birthday. Vivian Sydney had always treated life like it was waiting for her cue. Where Marguerite was careful, Vivian was dramatic. Where Marguerite planned, Vivian improvised. Where Marguerite packed a cardigan, Vivian packed earrings large enough to redirect traffic. Vivian had been living partly in Osaka for years, traveling for consulting work, cultural events, and what she called global joy management, which Marguerite suspected meant saying yes to things normal people prayed about first. When Marguerite arrived at the hotel, Vivian was waiting in the lobby wearing a red silk wrap dress, gold earrings, and the kind of smile that meant she had already arranged too much. My sister, Vivian cried, opening her arms. My beautiful, responsible, overpacked sister. Marguerite hugged her tightly. You tracked my flight, didn't you? Of course. That is surveillance. With lipstick. Marguerite pulled back and looked her over. You look like trouble. I look like celebration. That is trouble with better lighting. Vivian laughed and kissed her cheek. Welcome to Osaka. The hotel was elegant in a quiet, expensive way. Polished floors, fresh flowers. Staff who moved like sound was optional. Windows that showed the city stretching outward in glass and light. Marguerite looked around and lowered her voice. Vivian, this hotel looks like it charges for breathing. Only if you breathe imported air. Lord, you are not paying. That does not make me less aware of nonsense. Vivian linked arms with her and led her toward the elevator. Rest for a few hours. Dinner is at 7. Marguerite stopped. What dinner? My birthday dinner. I thought your birthday dinner was tomorrow. That is the official one. Vivian, this is the intimate one. How many people? Vivian paused. Marguerite narrowed her eyes. How many? 36? 36 people is not intimate. That is a church committee with appetizers. Vivian waved a hand. You will enjoy yourself. I came to see you, not perform in an international pageant. You are not performing. You are attending. Wearing what? Vivian smiled. Marguerite pointed at her. No sequins. Vivian's smile widened. God told on me. That evening, Marguerite stood in front of the mirror in her hotel room wearing a burnt orange dress. Not sequins, not plain, but beautiful. Vivian had chosen it months ago and mailed it with a note that read, Do not argue with the dress. It has more courage than you. Marguerite had almost left it in Atlanta. Now, looking at herself in the mirror, she was glad she had not. The dress fell softly over her body. It did not try to make her young. It did something far more dangerous. It made her visible. Her skin looked warm and rich beneath the hotel lights. Her hair, pinned back neatly, carried silver through it like memory. Her cheekbones were still strong. Her mouth was still full. Her eyes still knew how to laugh, even if they sometimes asked permission first. Marguerite leaned closer to the mirror. For a moment, she did not see mother, or nurse, or grandmother, or survivor. She saw a woman. Then fear moved in quickly, carrying Raymond's old voice like luggage. Too much. Too bright. At your age, dignity matters. Marguerite stepped back. Her hand moved to her gold earrings. She almost removed them, then stopped. No, she said softly. The word surprised her. Small, but firm. She left the earrings on. Vivian's dinner was held in a private dining room high above the city. Golden lights reflected against tall windows. White flowers lined the center of the table. Soft music moved beneath conversation. Guests stood in polished clusters, speaking English, Japanese, and the universal language of wealthy people pretending not to study one another. Marguerite entered beside Vivian and immediately decided she would survive exactly 2 hours, maybe 90 minutes if the dessert was small. Vivian presented her to the room with no mercy. My older sister, Marguerite Sydney, retired cardiac nurse, mother of 3, grandmother of 6, and the only woman I know who can make tomatoes behave through prayer and threats. People laughed. Marguerite smiled. I do not threaten tomatoes. Vivian leaned close. You negotiate with them like hostage takers. I encourage them firmly. You see? Marguerite shook her head, but she was smiling. For a while, the evening was manageable. People were kind, some were interesting, some were exhausting. Marguerite answered questions about Atlanta, nursing, her grandchildren, and whether she had visited Japan before. She listened more than she spoke. She laughed when Vivian made dramatic speeches. She avoided the richest-looking appetizers because they were usually the most suspicious. Then the room changed, not loudly, no announcement, no dramatic music, just a shift, a subtle tightening of attention, like the air itself had straightened. Marguerite turned. A man had entered the room. Tall, Japanese, silver at the temples, charcoal suit, no wasted movement, no visible need to impress anyone. He did not walk like a man hoping people would notice him. He walked like a man accustomed to rooms adjusting before he asked, yet there was nothing loud about him. That was what made him dangerous. His face was sharply handsome, but not in a polished way that begged admiration. His expression was controlled. His eyes were dark, observant, and quieter than the room deserved. Vivian's voice appeared near Marguerite's ear. Ah! Marguerite did not look at her. Who is that? That, Vivian said, with far too much satisfaction, is Itoshi Nakamura. Marguerite's stomach did something foolish. She ignored it. The chairman? Yes. The one you mentioned? Several times. You said he might stop by. I said it casually so you would not interrogate me. I am interrogating you now. Too late. He is coming over. Marguerite's spine straightened. Itoshi Nakamura crossed the room toward them. People greeted him as he moved, but he did not linger. He acknowledged them with respectful precision and continued forward. Vivian smiled like a woman watching two storms discover the same coastline. "Itoshi," she said, "you came." "I said I would try." "Which, from you, is practically a vow." His gaze shifted to Marguerite, and the room disappeared. Not truly, but enough. Enough that the music faded behind the pulse in her ears. Enough that Marguerite forgot, for one impossible second, to arrange her face into polite distance. Itoshi Nakamura looked at her. Not through her. Not past her. Not as Vivian's sister. Not as an older woman to greet respectfully and dismiss kindly. Not as a mother. Not as a grandmother. Not as a retired nurse. Not as someone whose best years belong to memory. He looked at her as if she had entered the room and made it more honest, as if the sentence of the evening had finally found its subject, as if she was not a fragment of somebody else's life, as if she was complete. Marguerite felt the look like light, too warm, too direct, too late. He bowed slightly. "Mrs. Sydney." His voice was low, controlled, and careful. She held herself still. "Mr. Nakamura." Vivian looked between them. "Oh, this is excellent!" Marguerite did not move her eyes from Itoshi. "Vivian?" "Yes?" "Breathe quieter." Itoshi's mouth changed. Not a full smile. Almost. That almost was worse. Vivian clasped her hands. "Itoshi, this is my sister, Marguerite. Marguerite, this is Chairman Itoshi Nakamura. He is very important and pretends not to know it." "I know it," Itoshi said. Marguerite blinked. Vivian laughed. Itoshi continued, "I simply try not to make it everyone else's burden." Marguerite looked at him more carefully. That was not the answer she expected. "Rare," she said. His eyes warmed. "Perhaps?" Vivian looked delighted enough to be dangerous. "I have spoken of you often," she told Marguerite. Marguerite turned to her. "That is unfortunate." Itoshi's almost smile returned. She spoke favorably. "That does not mean accurately." "No," he said. "I have learned Vivian enhances reality." "I do not enhance," Vivian protested. "I illuminate." "You fabricate with accessories," Marguerite said. Vivian touched one gold earring. "Accessories are a ministry." For the first time, Itoshi smiled. Not broadly, not carelessly, but genuinely enough that Marguerite felt it move through her chest like something opening. Absolutely not, she thought. Not this, not him, not here. Dinner began soon after. Itoshi did not sit beside her. That should have helped. It did not. He sat across the room, 3 seats down from Vivian, composed between 2 executives who seemed very impressed with themselves. Marguerite tried not to notice him. She failed with dignity. He did not stare. That would have been easier to dismiss. He listened. When she spoke, his attention found her. Not aggressively, not possessively, but fully. If someone interrupted her, his eyes did not follow the louder voice immediately. They stayed with Marguerite 1 second longer, as if finishing what others had cut short. That, more than anything, unsettled her. Desire could be mistaken. Attention could not. Halfway through dinner, Vivian rose for a toast. She lifted her glass, gold bracelets glinting beneath the lights. "To life," Vivian said. "Not the life we planned when we were foolish enough to think plans were contracts. The real one. The one that survives us, surprises us, drags us across oceans, and still has the nerve to offer joy when we thought joy had lost our address." The room murmured warmly. Glasses lifted. Marguerite smiled, then stopped. "Joy when we thought joy had lost our address." The words found her too cleanly. She took one breath, then another. The room suddenly felt smaller, too warm, too beautiful, too aware of her. She excused herself and stepped out onto the terrace. The air outside was cool. Osaka stretched beneath her in lights, roads, and distant movement. The city looked enormous, alive with thousands of lives that had nothing to do with hers. That comforted her. Marguerite stood at the railing and gripped it lightly. It was only a look, she whispered. Only a look. He had not touched her. He had not flirted. He had not made promises. He had not leaned in, lowered his voice, or tried to make her foolish. He had simply seen her. That was the part she did not know how to handle, because Raymond had taught her how to survive being unseen. He had not taught her how to survive being seen again. The glass reflected her faintly. Burnt orange dress, gold earrings, silver threaded hair, one hand on the railing. A woman in Osaka, breathing too carefully because a man across a room had looked at her like time had not disqualified her. She did not look foolish. That frightened her most. She looked alive. Inside the dining room, Itoshi watched the terrace door close behind her. Vivian appeared beside him. She needed air, she said. I know. You noticed quickly. I am not blind. No, Vivian said. You are not. He did not look away from the terrace door. Vivian's voice changed, careful beneath the drama. She is my heart. Itoshi finally turned. I understand. No, you understand many things. Money, power, rooms full of men pretending greed is governance, but Marguerite is not a room to manage. I know. Vivian studied him. If you are merely curious, stop now. His gaze returned to the terrace. I am not merely curious. Vivian inhaled. That is worse. Yes, he said quietly. I suspect it is. Do not follow her. I will not. Vivian looked at him. Tonight, he added. Vivian's eyes narrowed. Tonight? He said nothing. Vivian slowly smiled. Oh, this is going to be a problem. Itoshi looked toward the terrace door again. For the first time in years, he did not mind the possibility. Later, in the car back to the hotel, Vivian waited exactly 12 seconds before speaking. He looked at you. Marguerite stared out the window. Many people looked at me. No, people glanced. He looked. Vivian, do not Vivian me. I saw the air change. The air did not change. The air put on perfume. Marguerite closed her eyes. I am tired. You are shaken. I am jet-lagged. You are lying with excellent posture. Marguerite turned to her sister. Vivian's expression softened. What happened? Marguerite looked back out at Osaka. The city lights blurred gently through the car window. That man looked at me like he knew something I forgot. Vivian's teasing faded. What did you forget? Marguerite did not answer, because the answer sat somewhere too deep. She had forgotten what it felt like to be wanted before useful, seen before explaining, chosen before serving. A woman at 67, with a heart reckless enough to wake without permission. So she said nothing. Vivian did not push, for once. The next morning, Marguerite woke before her alarm. Jet lag had dragged her out of sleep at a rude hour, and memory had been waiting beside the bed like it had paid for the room. Itoshi Nakamura, his eyes, his almost smile, the way he had said her name as if it deserved careful handling. Marguerite stared at the ceiling. Oh, absolutely not. She got out of bed with the discipline of a woman refusing foolishness before breakfast. She showered, dressed in beige trousers, a white blouse, a light blue cardigan, and her best walking shoes. She pinned back her hair, checked her purse, packed her travel journal, took a hotel map, took a backup map, charged her phone, screenshotted the route, and confirmed with the concierge twice. Today she would visit Shitennoji Temple, alone, peacefully, without chairmen, without emotional disturbances, without Vivian's commentary. Vivian called as Marguerite was leaving the room. Good morning, my suspiciously quiet sister. I'm going to a temple. Alone? Yes. On purpose? Yes. Do you know where you are going? Yes. Do you really know? Or are you doing that thing where you hold paper confidently? Goodbye, Vivian. Do not get lost. I raised 3 children. That is not transit experience. I survived 38 years in cardiac nursing. Also not transit experience. I will be fine. Exploring is lost with confidence? Marguerite hung up, then immediately checked the map again. The first train was easy. That offended her. It gave her confidence. The station was busy but organized, filled with commuters, students, travelers, signs, arrows, announcements, and enough platforms to humble a woman who had grown too proud too quickly. Marguerite followed her phone directions. Then the signal wavered. She frowned. No, ma'am, she told the blue dot on the screen. You know where we are. The blue dot spun in spiritual confusion. Marguerite looked at her paper map. A young man rushed past. A train arrived. People boarded. The sign looked close enough to the one she remembered. Close enough, she would soon learn, was one of travel's most dangerous lies. She stepped onto the train. The doors closed. The train moved. For 5 minutes, Marguerite felt victorious. For 7 minutes, she felt uncertain. At 10 minutes, she realized the station names were not becoming more familiar. At 12 minutes, she turned the paper map upside down. At 14 minutes, she turned it back. At 15 minutes, she whispered, "This cannot be correct." It was not. By the time she stepped off at the next station, Marguerite Sydney was not lost. She was, as she later informed Vivian, temporarily misaligned with her intended destination. There was a difference. She stood near a pillar, purse tight under one arm, phone in one hand, map in the other, trying to look like a woman making strategic adjustments, rather than a grandmother betrayed by public transportation. Then a voice said, "Mrs. Sydney." Marguerite froze. No, absolutely not. She turned. Itoshi Nakamura stood several feet away, dressed in a dark coat over a suit, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a leather folder. A black car was likely waiting somewhere. Important people were likely being delayed. The universe apparently had a sense of humor and no respect for her dignity. Marguerite looked at him. "Mr. Nakamura." His eyes moved briefly to the map, then back to her face. He did not smile. That was kind of him. "Are you well?" "Yes." A pause. "Are you where you intended to be?" Another pause. "No." This time, his mouth almost moved. Almost. She lifted the map slightly. "I was testing the route." "Of course. And possibly the paper quality." "It appears durable." "It has been through a lot." "So have you, I think." The words were gentle. Too gentle. Marguerite looked away first. Itoshi stepped closer, but not too close. "Where is it you were actually trying to go?" There it was. The question. Simple. Direct. Not mocking. Not rescuing. Not taking control without permission. Marguerite looked at him. "Shitanoji Temple." He glanced once at the signage. "You are on the wrong train." I suspected less specifically. "You are also traveling in the wrong direction." Marguerite closed her eyes. That was unnecessary detail. "I apologize." "No, you do not." "No." And there it was again. That almost smile. She should have been annoyed. She was. Unfortunately, she was also amused. "I can fix it," she said. "I know. You do not need to help me." "I know. I am not helpless." "I did not think you were." That stopped her, because most people said that quickly when they had already decided the opposite. Itoshi said it as fact. He looked at the map again, then at the platform. "There is a transfer 2 stops back. I am going that direction." "Are you?" "Yes." "Convenient." Unexpectedly, she studied him. What about your meeting? I moved it. For a lost woman? For a woman taking an unexpected route. Marguerite stared at him. Do you always speak like that? Like what? Like you have already edited the sentence before saying it. He seemed to consider this. Yes. Despite herself, Marguerite laughed. The sound surprised her. It surprised him too, not because it was loud, because it was real. For a second, he simply looked at her. That look again. The one that did not make her younger, the one that made her present. Marguerite's laughter softened. She looked down at the map. I suppose I can accept directions. Not rescue? No. Directions then. They boarded the next train together. Itoshi did not lead in a way that made her feel managed. He walked beside her. At the train door, he stepped back to let her enter first. Inside, when a seat became free, he did not assume she needed it. He simply gestured toward it and waited. Marguerite sat because her feet were 67, even when her pride pretended otherwise. Itoshi sat beside her, leaving a respectful space. The train moved. For a while, they were quiet. Around them, passengers looked at phones, held bags, listened to music, lived their lives. No one knew that a woman from Atlanta and one of Japan's most powerful chairmen sat side by side inside a morning that had begun as a navigation failure and was quietly becoming something else. Marguerite looked at him. You truly moved a meeting? Yes. Important? Most meetings are called important by the people who requested them. That was not an answer. No. She smiled. He watched the smile happen as if he had been given something. Marguerite noticed and grew careful again. You should not look at me like that. He turned slightly. Like what? Like you are listening to more than I said. His expression did not change. I am. That was too honest. She looked ahead quickly. You are very direct. Only when indirectness would be disrespectful. Marguerite swallowed. The train rocked gently. After a moment, he asked, You were a nurse? Cardiac nurse. 38 years. Then you are used to people being frightened. Yes. And hiding it. Especially men. His mouth curved. That sounds accurate. It is. Did you love the work? Marguerite looked out the window. I loved parts of it. Which parts? The honest parts. He waited. She continued. Hospitals strip people down. Not physically, though that too sometimes, but emotionally. People arrive with titles, money, pride, grudges, secrets. Then the heart acts up, and suddenly everyone remembers they are flesh. Itoshi listened, not politely, fully. Marguerite felt it and almost stopped talking. Instead, she continued, I liked helping people through that, not because I wanted them weak, because I wanted them alive. His gaze softened. You worked close to the heart. Yes. People who work close to the heart usually learn to hide their own. Marguerite went still. The train noise seemed to grow softer. She looked at him slowly. That is a dangerous observation for a man I met last night. I know. Do you make many of those? No. Good. A pause. Then she asked, What about you? My work? No, your heart. His eyes shifted toward the window. For the first time, she saw it. The crack beneath the discipline. Not weakness. Grief. I was married, he said. Marguerite's face softened. Was? My wife died 9 years ago. I am sorry. Thank you. Do you still miss her? Yes. No hesitation. Marguerite respected that. What was her name? Yuriko. He said the name carefully, as if it still deserved a room. She began part of our medical foundation, he said. Clinics, rural access, children's care, later, cardiac equipment. Marguerite looked at him. Cardiac? Yes. Why later? He paused. Because of a letter. Before she could ask more, the train slowed. Their stop approached. The moment folded itself away. They changed trains. This time, under Itoshi's guidance, the route became simple, almost embarrassingly simple. Marguerite did not mention that. Neither did he. At the temple gate, the city seemed to lower its voice. Shitenoji stood with a quiet dignity that made the morning feel older than their worries. Wooden structures, stone paths, temple roofs, a sense of history that did not care who had gotten on the wrong train. Marguerite stopped at the entrance. She breathed in. Oh, she said softly. Itoshi stood beside her. Yes. She looked at him. You have been here before? Many times. And it still moves you? Yes. That answer mattered. Some people stopped seeing what they had seen often. Others learned to see deeper. Itoshi looked at her. May I walk with you to the gate? She understood the question beneath the question. May I come this far? May I not assume more? May I respect where you draw the line? To the gate, she said. He bowed his head slightly. To the gate. They walked together, slowly, no flirting, no rushing, no young love pretending the world had disappeared. This was different. This was two people who had lived enough life to know every step had meaning, if the heart had been sleeping too long. At the gate, Marguerite stopped. I can go from here. I know. I want to see it alone. I understand. She looked at him. He meant it. That unsettled her as much as anything else. Thank you, she said, for directions. For not making me feel foolish. His eyes softened. You are not foolish. You do not know that. I know enough. She held his gaze 1 second too long, then looked away. You are very bad for a woman's peace, Itoshi Nakamura. He smiled then. A real one. Quiet. Devastating. And you, he said, are very bad for a man's discipline, Marguerite Sydney. Her heart forgot its age, only for a second. But enough. She turned quickly toward the temple before he could see too much. Of course, he had already seen too much. That was becoming the problem. She spent the next hour walking the temple grounds alone. She took pictures for miles. She bought a small charm for Zuri. She sat beneath a tree and wrote in her journal. Osaka is not loud the way I expected. It is layered. It moves quickly, but it has quiet places tucked inside it like folded letters. Today I visited Shitenoji Temple. I got there eventually. She paused, then added, Some mistakes are worth correcting slowly. She stared at the line, then closed the journal as if it had misbehaved. On the train back, she told herself the day had been nothing. A coincidence, a kindness, a pleasant exchange between two mature adults who would not make fools of themselves. She was still telling herself that when, several seats away, a stranger lifted a phone, the camera focused. Marguerite was laughing at something Itoshi had said. Not loudly, not foolishly, openly. Itoshi was turned toward her, his whole attention on her face. The stranger took the photograph. 1 second. That was all. 1 stolen second. 1 private laugh. 1 powerful man looking at 1 woman as though the world had become more honest because she was in it. By evening, the photograph would begin to move. Quietly at first, then faster. A train car, a retired American nurse, a Japanese chairman, a woman who had packed no expectations, a man who had already begun to remember her. And somewhere between the wrong train and the right destination, a story neither of them had asked for had opened its eyes. By morning, Marguerite Sydney had become a headline, not a woman, not a retired cardiac nurse, not a mother, not a grandmother, not Vivian's older sister visiting Osaka for 11 days with practical shoes and no expectations. A headline. That was the first violence of public attention. It flattened a person. It took a whole life. 67 years of laughter, grief, labor, prayer, motherhood, marriage, divorce, healing, and quiet survival, and pressed it into words strangers could scroll past over coffee. Mystery Woman. Scene with Nakamura. Chairman on Osaka train. Foreign companion sparks questions around Japan's most private billionaire. Retired American nurse. Linked to Itoshi Nakamura. Divorced grandmother becomes center of Nakamura family speculation. Marguerite sat at the small hotel table in her robe, one hand around a cup of tea that had gone cold, and watched her own face become public property. The photograph was everywhere now. The train, her folded map. Her head turned toward Itoshi, her mouth open in laughter, his body angled toward her with quiet attention. It should have been nothing. A private moment. A strange, sweet morning between two people who had met too late in life to pretend every glance was casual. But the internet did not know how to leave tenderness alone. It circled tenderness like prey. One article mentioned her age twice in the first paragraph. 67. Older woman, late life companion. It mentioned Itoshi's age once. 65. Distinguished chairman. Marguerite stared at that difference for a long moment. For him, age became authority. For her, age became evidence. Another article called her a foreign companion, as if she had been imported into his life with suspicious purpose. Another described her as a divorced grandmother from America, not because those words were false, but because the arrangement of them made her sound like an accusation. Then came the comments. Some were cruel. Some were curious. Some were cruel while pretending to be curious. She looks like his nurse. At her age? Interesting strategy. Grandma hit the jackpot. Why would a man like him want her unless she has something on him? This is embarrassing for his family. Black American women are bold. I'll give them that. A retired nurse? Sure. Follow the money. He must be lonely. She knows exactly what she's doing. Marguerite closed the laptop. Not gently. The sound cracked through the room. Vivian, who had been standing behind her in complete silence, inhaled through her nose. It was not a peaceful sound. It was the sound of a woman choosing between prayer and felony. No more, Vivian said. Marguerite stared at the closed screen. I needed to know what they were saying. No. You needed to know whether strangers had found a way to make themselves ugly before breakfast. They have. Mystery solved. Marguerite looked down at her hands. They were steady. That annoyed her. Sometimes the body had the nerve to behave while the heart was on fire. I am all right, she said. Vivian came around the table. You are not. I am. Marguerite. I said I'm all right. And I said you are lying with excellent posture. Marguerite looked at her sister. For one moment, the room held both of them as girls again. Vivian, fierce, emotional, ready to fight anything with teeth. Marguerite older, careful, already learning how to make calm look like strength. Vivian sat across from her. They had no right. No? They stole a laugh. Marguerite's throat tightened. That was it. Not the article, not the headline, the stolen laugh. For years, laughter had been one of the few parts of herself Marguerite had worked hard to reclaim. It arrived before the joke. It filled rooms. It embarrassed people who preferred women contained. It had once been one of Raymond's favorite things about her. Then it became something he corrected. Too loud, Marguerite. People are looking. You do not have to react to everything. Now strangers had taken that laugh, circled it, judged it, priced it, racialized it, aged it, and asked what she wanted in exchange for it. Marguerite stood. I am going to get dressed. Vivian's eyes narrowed. For what? For breakfast. Marguerite. I will not sit in this room in a robe while the internet decides whether I am respectable. Vivian leaned back. Good. Marguerite paused. What? I said good. Dress beautifully. Terrify them spiritually. Marguerite almost smiled. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She ignored it. It buzzed again. A message appeared. Enjoy Osaka. Then go home before you embarrass yourself. The room changed. Vivian saw Marguerite's face before she saw the message. What? Marguerite handed her the phone. Vivian read it, then read it again. Her expression went very still. This was worse than fury. Fury in Vivian was loud. This was quiet. This, Vivian said, is where I become unreasonable. No, no, no. Marguerite, someone threatened you. They insulted me. They warned you to leave. They are cowards with punctuation. Do not be poetic at a time like this. That is my job. Marguerite took the phone back. Her hands were no longer steady. She hated that. Vivian softened. Baby. Marguerite closed her eyes. There were old wounds that did not knock. They heard one familiar word and let themselves in. Embarrass yourself. She knew that language. Not because Raymond had always used those exact words, because he had taught her the feeling beneath them. The careful pressure to shrink before someone else had to ask. The warning that dignity meant invisibility. The suggestion that a woman of a certain age should be grateful for quiet and suspicious of desire. Marguerite opened her eyes. I am not ashamed, she said. Vivian looked at her carefully. No, I am not. I believe you. I am not. I said I believe you. But Marguerite needed to hear herself say it more than once. By noon, Itoshi knew. Not just about the articles, about the message. Hiro told him in his private office, where the city stretched beyond glass walls and the air conditioning made everything colder than necessary. Itoshi stood near the window, silent. Hiro held the tablet in both hands. The account that first shared the photograph has deleted the post, but screenshots are circulating. Several business gossip channels have picked it up. The anonymous message to Mrs. Sydney came from a number that appears to be masked. Itoshi did not turn. Find who sent it. We are tracing it. Faster. Yes, Chairman. And no one approaches her hotel. Security has been increased discreetly. Discreetly, Itoshi repeated. Yes. She is not to feel watched. Hiro paused. That may be difficult if she notices. She will notice. Yes. She was a cardiac nurse. She will see everything. Hiro inclined his head. Then what should I do? Itoshi finally turned. His face was controlled. His eyes were not. Protect the perimeter, not her choices. Hiro understood. Yes, Chairman. Itoshi looked at the train photograph on the tablet. He had not wanted to. Now he did. Marguerite laughing, open, unaware, alive. The photograph should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like evidence of theft. He looked away. Does she know I know? Not yet. I will call her. Hiro hesitated. Itoshi looked at him. What? Mrs. Sydney may not want to feel managed? Itoshi's gaze sharpened, then softened with reluctant agreement. No, he said quietly. She would not. She may interpret assistance as control. Yes, the word cost him. Power in his life had solved many things. It had opened doors, silenced rooms, moved schedules, protected people from dangers they never learned existed. But Marguerite Sydney was not one of his companies, not one of his employees, not one of his foundations, not a problem to contain. That was precisely why the situation frightened him. He could protect a border. He could not protect her heart without permission. Send a message, he said. Hiro waited. Itoshi picked up his phone and typed carefully. Marguerite, I have seen the articles. I am sorry this reached you. I will not speak publicly or act without your consent. But I want you to know this. You are not a problem to me. He stared at the words, then added, and you are not alone. He sent it. In the hotel room, Marguerite read the message 3 times. Vivian hovered in the background, pretending not to hover. What did he say? Marguerite handed over the phone. Vivian read it. Her expression softened in a way she immediately tried to hide. That man is annoyingly well raised. Marguerite took the phone back. He wants to protect me. Good. No. Vivian blinked. No. I do not want to be protected like property. I do not think that is what he means. I know. Then what is the problem? Marguerite sat on the edge of the bed. The problem is I like that he wants to. Vivian's face changed. Marguerite looked down at the phone. I spent too many years needing protection from things everyone called normal. Now someone sees insult and calls it insult, and I do not know what to do with the part of me that is relieved. Vivian sat beside her. Maybe let that part breathe. Marguerite shook her head. Relief is dangerous. No. Denying it is. The phone buzzed again. This time, not Itoshi. Raymond. Marguerite's body tightened before her mind could pretend otherwise. Vivian saw it. Do not answer. Marguerite stared at the screen. Raymond's name glowed like an old bruise touched by accident. I should. No, you should not. He will call the children. He probably already has. The phone stopped. Then a message appeared. Marguerite. I saw the picture. Call me. What are you doing? Another. You need to think carefully before this becomes embarrassing. Marguerite's stomach turned. Vivian cursed softly. Give me the phone. No. I will answer as your representative. You will cause an international incident. I will cause a domestic one, much cheaper. Marguerite stood and moved toward the window. The phone rang again. Raymond. She answered. Hello, Raymond. His voice came through smooth with practiced concern. Marguerite, why are you calling? I was worried. No, you were curious. A pause. I see you are already defensive. I see you are already familiar. Vivian's eyes widened. Raymond exhaled. I saw a photograph of my ex-wife online with some billionaire in Japan, and you think I am not going to call? You could have asked if I was safe. I did ask what was going on. That is not the same thing. Another pause. Marguerite could picture him perfectly. Standing in his kitchen, one hand on the counter, brows drawn, not with fear, but with irritation that the world had handed him a version of her he did not control. Marguerite, he said, do you understand how this looks? There it was, the old sentence in a new suit. Marguerite closed her eyes. How does it look? Foolish? Vivian took one violent step forward. Marguerite lifted a hand to stop her. Raymond continued. You are in a foreign country, photographed with a powerful man you barely know, and now your name is being dragged into his business affairs. At your age, you need to think about dignity. At your age, dignity. Marguerite saw herself years ago in a burgundy dress. She had bought it for a charity dinner. It had made her feel beautiful in a way she had not felt in months. Raymond had looked up from the bedroom chair and said, That is a little much, don't you think? She had asked, Too bright? He had shrugged. People will be looking. She had changed into black. Not because he forced her, because peace had felt easier than explaining why a wife still deserved to feel beautiful at her husband's side. Memory folded into another. Raymond coming home late. The smell of another woman's perfume. Marguerite asking where he had been. Raymond saying, Marguerite, at our age, do we really need to perform jealousy? At our age, as if desire expired and betrayal became practical, as if she should have been grateful he came home at all. Marguerite opened her eyes. Concern asks if I am safe, she said. Control asks if I know how I look. Raymond went quiet. Then his voice hardened. Now you are being dramatic. Vivian's mouth fell open in outrage. Marguerite almost smiled. The old line had arrived exactly on schedule. No, she said, I am being accurate. Men like him do not love women like you. The sentence landed, not because she believed it, because some younger, wounded part of her still knew the road to that room. Marguerite held the phone tighter. What do you mean by women like me? Raymond hesitated. He knew the trap because it was not a trap. It was a mirror. I mean women who are not used to that world. No. Say what you mean. I mean older women, Marguerite. Women with children and grandchildren. Women with real lives. Men like him become curious. That is all. They get bored. Vivian's eyes filled with fury. Marguerite's voice stayed calm. You called because you saw another man looking at me in a way you stopped bothering to. Raymond inhaled sharply. That is unfair. Fair did not seem to trouble you when you stopped seeing me while I was still standing in front of you. Marguerite? No. You do not get to use concern as a doorway back into authority. I was your husband for 31 years. And then you were not. Silence. Marguerite looked out at Osaka. For the first time, the city did not feel foreign. Raymond's voice did. I am not your wife anymore, she said, and embarrassment no longer belongs to you. She ended the call. For several seconds, the room was silent. Then Vivian whispered, I have waited 11 years to hear that. Marguerite stood still, phone in hand. Her chest hurt, not like weakness, like something old had been pulled loose from bone. Vivian came to her, but Marguerite shook her head. Not yet. Okay. I need a minute. You can have 3, then I'm hugging you whether you like it or not. Marguerite laughed once. It broke. Then the tears came, not many. Not enough to undo her makeup, but enough to admit the wound had been touched. Later that afternoon, a note arrived at the hotel. Not a text. A handwritten note inside a cream envelope. Hero delivered it himself, which Vivian found suspicious and Marguerite found annoyingly elegant. The note read, Marguerite, if you would allow it, I would like to show you a garden this afternoon. Not a restaurant, not a room full of people, a quiet place. You may bring Vivian, you may refuse. Either answer will be respected. Itoshi. Marguerite read it twice. Vivian read it over her shoulder because Vivian respected privacy only when it belonged to strangers. A garden, Vivian said. Yes. Not a restaurant. I can read. A quiet place. I am still literate. You may bring Vivian. You are enjoying this. I am mentioned by name. Marguerite folded the note carefully. I should not go. Vivian tilted her head. That is different from I do not want to go. Marguerite looked at her sister. Vivian's expression softened. Do not make fear sound like wisdom just because it has good diction. I am tired. I know. I am exposed. I know. I do not want to be handled. Then go and tell him that. Marguerite looked down at the note. What if he is too much? Vivian smiled sadly. Then come back. And if he is not? Vivian's eyes grew gentle. Then let the garden answer what the hotel room cannot. Marguerite went alone. She told herself that bringing Vivian would make the moment theatrical. Vivian said that was offensive, but accepted it because she loved her sister and because she planned to interrogate Hero later. The garden was hidden behind high walls on a quiet street, not far from the movement of Osaka, but somehow untouched by its speed. Hero met her at the gate and bowed. Mrs. Sydney. So you are Hero? Yes. I have not decided whether I like you. I understand. You are very efficient. I apologize. No, you do not. No. Marguerite gave him a look. He opened the gate. Inside, the garden unfolded in layers. Stone path, moss, maples, a narrow stream moving gently over rocks, koi shifting beneath the surface of a pond, a small wooden pavilion set back beneath the trees. It did not look like wealth showing itself. It looked like peace protected from noise. Itoshi stood near the pond in a white shirt and dark trousers, jacket removed, sleeves rolled just slightly. Without the suit armor, he looked less like a chairman and more like a man who had learned to stand alone beautifully. Marguerite stopped. He turned. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he bowed his head. "Thank you for coming." "I came for the garden." "I chose it hoping you would." That was manipulative. It was strategic. She looked at him. His mouth almost smiled. She sighed. "You are difficult. I have been told." They walked slowly. Not side by side at first. There was space between them. Enough for caution. Enough for respect. The garden held their silence without making it awkward. Finally, Itoshi said, "I saw the articles. I assumed." "I am sorry. You did not write them." "No, but my world made them useful." That answer made her look at him. Most powerful men apologized only for damage that could be legally traced to them. Itoshi apologized for atmosphere. That was more dangerous. "I received a message," she said. "I know." Her eyes sharpened. "Hero?" "Yes. I do not like being watched." "I know." "Do you?" "Yes." "Then why?" "Because someone threatened you," he said. "And because I'm trying to protect your safety without touching your freedom." She stopped walking. The distinction found her. He stopped too, a few steps away, not crowding. "I may fail," he said. "That is honest. I would rather be corrected than assume." Marguerite looked at the pond. Koi moved beneath the water like thoughts. "My ex-husband called." Itoshi's expression changed. Not much. Enough. "Raymond." She looked at him. "I did not tell you his name." "No." "Hero?" "Yes." "I dislike your efficiency even more now." "It is not his fault. I asked what could be known without invading your privacy." "That sounds like a polite invasion." "It may be." The honesty made her exhale. "He told me I looked foolish," she said. Itoshi's eyes darkened. "He is a foolish man." "You do not know him." "I know what he said to you." "That is not the whole of a person." "No, but cruelty reveals what courtesy hides." Marguerite looked away. The sentence cut too close. They reached a stone bench. Itoshi did not sit until she did. That small courtesy should not have mattered. It did. "He was my husband for 31 years, she said. Itoshi sat beside her, leaving careful space. "And the marriage ended in a way you do not discuss with strangers." She looked at him. "You remembered?" "Yes. I suppose you're not a stranger now." His voice softened. "No." She looked down at her hands. "I became quieter." The garden seemed to listen. "That is the simplest way to say it," she continued. "Not quieter in one day. Quiet in layers. First my laugh, then my clothes, then my stories, then my opinions, then my sadness, then my anger." Itoshi's face remained still, but his eyes did not. "If someone erases you slowly enough," Marguerite said, "you start helping them keep the lines clean." He said nothing. Good. Some men interrupted pain because silence made them feel useless. Itoshi let the words land. She continued, "He did not hit me. He paid the bills. People thought he was steady, respectable, and maybe he was, in the parts they saw, but I was disappearing beside him. By the time I realized I had mistaken disappearance for peace, I did not know how to come back loudly." Itoshi's voice was quiet. "You came back laughing." Marguerite closed her eyes. The tears came too quickly. She turned her face away. I almost lost that too, but not completely. No. Good. She looked at him. His expression held no pity, only recognition. That steadied her. You speak like someone who survived being unseen, he said. She breathed in. And you speak like someone who has been obeyed too long. For a second, he simply stared at her. Then he smiled. A real smile, not polite, not controlled, real enough to change his face. Marguerite's heart moved before she could stop it. He liked that she was not impressed by him. No, worse. He was relieved. They walked again. At the pavilion, tea had been placed on a low table. Nothing excessive, nothing glittering. Just porcelain cups, quiet steam, and a small plate of sweets. Marguerite sat. Itoshi sat opposite her. For a while, they spoke of safer things. Her grandchildren, his children, her garden in Atlanta, his late wife, Yuriko, the medical foundation she had begun. Marguerite listened when he spoke of Yuriko. The love was still there, shaped by grief, but not poisoned by it. She would have liked you, he said. Marguerite looked down. You do not have to say that. I know. You loved her. Yes. And you still do. Yes. Good. He looked at her. Good. I would not trust a man who needed to erase one woman to make room for another. His eyes softened. No. You would not. Then he grew quieter. There is something I need to tell you. Marguerite's body went still. All right. Years ago, my wife began expanding the Nakamura Yuriko Foundation into medical access projects. After her illness, I continued some of that work, but grief made parts of it unbearable. He looked toward the garden. There were clinics, equipment funds, programs that carried her handwriting, her questions, her corrections. After she died, I considered narrowing them, delaying them, ending parts quietly. Marguerite listened. One of the donations went to a cardiac center in Atlanta. Her breath stopped. Where? St. Catherine's Heart Center. Marguerite stared at him. I worked there. Yes. How do you know that? Because after the donation, we received a letter. The garden changed. Or she did. Itoshi reached into a folder on the table and removed a copy of a scanned document. He did not push it toward her immediately. He waited. May I show you? Marguerite nodded slowly. He handed it to her. She looked down. St. Catherine's Heart Center letterhead, a date from 15 years ago, her own handwriting, her own name, Marguerite Elise Sydney. N. The past rose so suddenly she almost could not breathe. She read, To the donor who chose not to be named, anonymity does not make generosity invisible. Today, a man who thought money had decided whether he lived or died was told there was still care available for him. Today, a mother was given answers early enough to fight for more years with her children. Her hand trembled. She kept reading. I have spent years working close to the heart. The heart is stubborn. It fails, strains, breaks, heals, hides, warns, and sometimes surprises us by continuing when every sign says it should stop. People are like that too. Generosity becomes part of people's survival. Long after the money is spent, the mercy remains. She stopped. The words blurred. She remembered writing letters like this. Not this one exactly. There had been so many shifts, so many patients, so many donors, so many desperate mornings where gratitude needed somewhere to go before the next emergency arrived. To her, it had been one letter among many hard days. To him, it had been kept. It was you, she whispered. The foundation was anonymous. But it was you. Yes! She looked up at him. He was watching her carefully, not triumphantly. I kept it, he said. Why? His gaze dropped to the letter. Because when Yuriko died, I almost closed the part of the foundation that hurt most to continue. Your letter arrived during that season. I read it late one night in Tokyo and became angry. Angry? For about 3 minutes. Why? Because you were right. Marguerite's throat tightened. He continued, You wrote that generosity becomes part of people's survival. That mercy remains. I had money, power, grief, and 100 excuses, but your letter reminded me that the work did not belong only to my pain. He looked at her fully. One reason that program stayed open was because of your words. Marguerite looked back at the letter. 15 years, before Osaka, before the wrong train, before headlines, before anyone had called her a mystery woman, before Itoshi had known her face, he had known something of her heart. The realization frightened her more than the scandal. Attraction could be dismissed. Coincidence could be laughed away. A handsome man on a train could become a story she told Vivian years later. But this had roots, and roots were harder to run from. I barely remember writing it, she said. That does not make it less important. It was just a letter. To you. She looked at him. He said, To me, it was a door I did not close. Marguerite's chest ached. She set the paper down carefully. I do not know what to do with this. You do not have to do anything today. That is not true. It is. No. Her voice grew sharper. You do not understand. He waited. She stood and walked to the edge of the pavilion. The garden blurred around her. I could dismiss a look, she said. I could dismiss a train ride. I could dismiss a man being kind to a confused woman with an upside-down map. It was not upside down. It was emotionally upside down. His mouth moved, but he wisely did not smile. Marguerite turned back. I could dismiss attention. I could even dismiss desire if I had to. I am old enough to know not every spark needs a house built around it. I know. But how do I dismiss someone who carried proof that my heart mattered before he ever knew my face? Itoshi went still. There it was, the truth. Bare, terrifying. Marguerite's eyes filled. I am too old to be someone's beautiful mistake. He rose slowly, not rushing, not closing the distance too quickly. Then be my deliberate choice. The words entered her quietly. Then, everywhere. Marguerite stared at him. The garden seemed to stop breathing. He continued, I do not say that because I know the shape of everything. I do not know your life fully. I do not know your mornings, your family rhythms, your fears after divorce, the way your grandchildren pull on your time, the silence of your house, the demands of your garden, or what it cost you to laugh again. He stepped closer, still leaving room. But I know the difference between impulse and recognition. Marguerite could not look away. I read your heart before I knew your face, he said. Now I know both. I will not pretend that means nothing, because the world is uncomfortable. Her tears slipped free. He did not reach for them. That made him more dangerous. He knew not to touch a woman's tears without permission. You should be careful, she whispered. I am trying. No, with me. His eyes softened. I am trying. She looked at him for a long moment, then down at the letter, then away. I need to think, then think. I need space, then I will give it. I need to not be managed. You will not be. I need you to understand that my life is not empty just because part of me is lonely. His expression changed, tender, serious. I understand. I have children, grandchildren, a home, a garden, a church, a life. Yes. And I will not become a secret in yours. No. The word came immediately, firmly. No? No, he said. You will not be a secret. Something inside her shook. She gathered her purse. I should go. He bowed his head. Hero will take you. I can take a taxi. You can, but someone sent you a threat. Please allow transportation, not control. He had learned quickly. That mattered. Fine, she said. Transportation, not control. His eyes warmed. Agreed. At the gate, he stopped. I can send you the copy of the letter if you want it. Marguerite swallowed. And if I do not? Then it remains safe. She looked at him. With you? Yes. The word should not have comforted her. It did. At the hotel, Vivian was waiting in Marguerite's room with the energy of a woman who had paced through several emotional weather systems. Well? Marguerite closed the door behind her. Vivian stood. What happened? Marguerite did not answer immediately. She walked to the bed and sat down. Vivian's face changed. Marguerite, he knew my name. Of course he knows your name. No, my full name, from before. Vivian grew still. What do you mean? Marguerite looked up. The medical foundation. The cardiac equipment donation at St. Catherine's years ago. It came from his foundation. Anonymous. Vivian's mouth parted. Marguerite continued. I wrote a thank you letter 15 years ago. To him? To the donor. I did not know. Vivian sat down slowly. He kept it. Vivian's eyes filled. Marguerite's voice broke despite her effort. He kept my words, Vivian. Oh, baby. I barely remember writing it. But he remembered. He said after his wife died, that letter helped him keep part of the foundation open. Vivian pressed a hand to her mouth. Marguerite looked away. I wanted it to be simple. It was never simple. I wanted to be wise. You are? No, I'm afraid. That too. Marguerite laughed softly through tears. I am afraid because now it feels like something I cannot make small enough to control. Vivian took her hand. Maybe some things are not meant to become small just because we are scared. Before Marguerite could answer, her phone started vibrating. Aisha, Denise, Malcolm, Aisha again, then the grandchildren group chat, then Raymond. Marguerite's stomach sank. Vivian picked up the phone and looked at the screen. What now? Marguerite opened the laptop. A new article had appeared. This one was worse. Retired American nurse linked to Nakamura chairman amid succession concerns. The subheading, sources question whether Marguerite Sydney, currently visiting Osaka, has gained unusual personal influence over billionaire chairman Itoshi Nakamura during a sensitive corporate transition. Marguerite read the phrases slowly. Financial background unclear, close companion, undue influence, board concern, divorced grandmother from America. Her name appeared again and again, not as a person, as a weapon. Vivian began speaking, but Marguerite no longer heard her clearly. Her children were calling. Raymond was calling. The internet was feeding. Itoshi's world was moving around her like a machine, and somewhere inside her, fear rose with a practical voice. Leave. Not tomorrow. Not after explanations. Leave before they turn you into something your grandchildren have to defend. Leave before your children see more. Leave before Itoshi's family hates you. Leave before the thing becomes too sacred to survive the damage. Her phone buzzed again. Denise's message appeared. Mom, what is going on? Call me now. Malcolm. Ma? Are you safe? Who is doing this? Aisha. Mom, please answer. I'm scared. Raymond. I warned you. Marguerite stared at that last message. I warned you. Not, are you hurt? Not, I am sorry they are doing this to you. I warned you. She felt something inside her go very still. Vivian touched her shoulder. Marguerite. I need to go home. Vivian's hand froze. No, I do. No, you need to breathe. My children are scared. They can be scared, and still not control you. This is not just about me. It is partly about you. Stop erasing that part. Marguerite stood. I can't become a scandal at 67. Vivian's eyes filled. There it is. What? Raymond's voice wearing your mouth. Marguerite flinched. Vivian stood too. Listen to me. You are not a scandal. You are a woman someone tried to shame because being seen made you harder to control. You do not understand. I understand perfectly. You are trying to leave before the world can decide what you are worth. Marguerite's voice broke. No, I am trying to protect everyone. Running is not protection just because you pack neatly. Marguerite looked at her sister. Her eyes were wet. Her voice was quiet. Maybe not, but I know how to bleed at home. Vivian's anger collapsed into sorrow. Oh, Marguerite! But Marguerite had already opened the airline website. Osaka to Atlanta? Earlier departures. Her fingers moved before her courage could interrupt. The screen loaded. Available flights appeared. Her original return date sat there like the life she had planned. 11 days. She had not even made it halfway. Marguerite selected an earlier departure. Her hand hovered over the confirmation button. For a moment, Itoshi's voice returned. Then be my deliberate choice. Then Raymond's. Men like him do not love women like you. Then Vivian's. Do not make fear sound like wisdom. Then her own, quieter than all of them. I am tired. She clicked. The flight changed. Confirmation appeared. Vivian looked at the screen, then at her sister. You are leaving. Marguerite closed the laptop. Yes. Does he know? No. Are you going to tell him? Marguerite looked away. I cannot. Because he might stop you? Marguerite's eyes filled again. No. Vivian's voice softened. Because he would not. That was the truth. That was why it hurt. Itoshi would not chase her into a corner. He would not command her. He would not make his longing heavier than her fear. He would simply look at her, understand too much, and give her the space she asked for. That kind of love was almost impossible to run from, so she would have to leave before facing it. Outside the hotel window, Osaka glittered under the evening sky. Somewhere across the city, Itoshi Nakamura was likely being told the scandal had grown teeth. Somewhere in America, her children were frightened. Somewhere in her phone, Raymond's warning sat like an old chain trying to remember her neck. And in the quiet hotel room, Marguerite Sydney packed her suitcase for a departure that felt less like wisdom with every folded blouse. She told herself she was protecting everyone, her children, her peace, Itoshi, the fragile thing between them. But deep down, beneath the fear, beneath the dignity, beneath the careful reasons, one truth waited without mercy. She was leaving because being seen had become more dangerous than being lonely. And after 31 years of disappearing politely, loneliness was a pain she knew how to survive. Marguerite Sydney packed before dawn, not because she needed the time, because fear preferred the dark. In the quiet hotel room, before Osaka had fully awakened, she folded her clothes with the careful hands of a woman trying to make heartbreak look practical. Cream blouse, navy cardigan, walking shoes, travel journal, medicine, passport. A suitcase could not tell the difference between wisdom and escape. That was convenient. Marguerite told herself she was protecting everyone. Her children, who had woken up in America to articles calling their mother a mystery woman. Her grandchildren, who did not deserve to see strangers laugh at their grandmother's face online. Vivian, who had already threatened several forms of elegant violence. Itoshi, whose name carried too much power and too many enemies. And herself, especially herself. She had spent 11 years rebuilding peace after Raymond. She knew the cost of being dragged into someone else's emotional weather. She knew what happened when a woman stayed too long in a place where people were already deciding what she was worth. She could not become a scandal at 67. That sentence had become her shield. She repeated it while folding her dress. She repeated it while zipping the suitcase. She repeated it while checking the flight confirmation. She repeated it until it almost sounded like courage. Almost. A knock came at the door. Marguerite froze, then closed her eyes. Vivian. Of course. Her sister never knocked like a guest. She knocked like an accusation wearing jewelry. Marguerite opened the door. Vivian stood in the hallway wearing a silk robe, slippers, and the kind of furious face that meant she had either discovered the truth or smelled it through the walls. Her eyes went past Marguerite, to the suitcase, packed, ready. Vivian's expression changed. You were going to leave without telling me? Marguerite stepped back. I was going to call from the airport. The airport? I did not want a scene. Vivian walked into the room. That is fascinating, because betrayal is often quieter than a scene. Vivian. No. Vivian turned on her. Do not Vivian me. You changed your flight. Yes. When? Last night. And you did not tell me. I am telling you now, because I caught you. Marguerite looked away. That was answer enough. Vivian stared at her for a long moment. Then her anger softened into something worse. Hurt. My God, Marguerite. I cannot stay. Yes, you can. No, I cannot. You mean you will not? Marguerite's spine stiffened. Do not make this simple. I am not making it simple. You are. The words struck harder than they should have. Marguerite turned toward the window. Osaka was pale beneath the early morning, a city that had given her wonder, danger, and a man she'd not known how to survive wanting. Vivian stepped closer. You are packing fear and calling it wisdom. I am protecting myself. You are running. I am protecting my children. They are grown. They are still my children. And you are still a woman. The room went quiet. Marguerite's hands tightened at her sides. Vivian's voice softened, but it did not weaken. You are still a woman, Marguerite. Not only a mother, not only a grandmother, not only the one people call when something hurts, not only the woman who holds everybody else together while her own heart bleeds politely in the corner. Marguerite turned. I can't become a scandal at 67. Vivian's eyes flashed. There it is. It is true. No, it is Raymond's voice using your mouth. Marguerite flinched. Vivian saw it and came closer. They took a photograph of you laughing. They turned your age into a headline, your race into speculation, your divorce into evidence, and your dignity into debate. That is what they did. You do not honor yourself by agreeing with them. I am not agreeing with them. You are leaving because of them. I am leaving because I still have a life. Yes, and a life does not become stronger every time you run back to it bleeding. Marguerite's voice broke. You think I want this? Vivian stopped. Marguerite pressed one hand to her chest. You think I want to leave him like this? Without a word? Without looking at his face? Without knowing what this could have been if people had just left us alone? Her eyes filled. I wanted it to be small enough to survive. Vivian's anger vanished. Oh, baby. Marguerite shook her head. No, let me say it. I wanted it to be a beautiful mistake. A dinner, a look, a wrong train, a garden. Something I could carry home and open later when no one was watching. Her voice trembled. But then he showed me the letter. Vivian's face softened. Marguerite looked toward the suitcase. He kept my words for 15 years. Before he knew my face. Before Osaka. Before any of this. How am I supposed to make that small? Vivian did not answer, because there was no answer easy enough. Marguerite wiped one tear before it could fall properly. If it were shallow, I could stay and let it burn out. If it were foolish, I could laugh about it later. If it were only attraction, I could scold myself and survive. She turned back to Vivian. But it is not shallow, and that is why I have to go. Vivian's voice came softer now. Running is not the same as wisdom. Neither is staying. No, but you are not leaving because you are certain. You are leaving because uncertainty scares you. Yes, Marguerite whispered. It does. Vivian's eyes filled. I am scared of becoming public property. I am scared of my children hurting because of me. I am scared his family will hate me. I am scared he will fight for me and lose pieces of himself. I am scared I will stay and resent him for pain he did not choose. She looked down. And I am scared because if he asks me to stay, I might. Vivian closed her eyes. That was the truth. The whole one. If he asks, Vivian said, maybe you should listen. Marguerite shook her head. He would not ask. Vivian opened her eyes. No. That is why I cannot face him. Because Itoshi would not chase her into a corner. He would not demand. He would not make his pain heavier than her choice. He would look at her with that devastating restraint, understand too much, and give her room. That kind of respect was harder to run from than control, so she had to leave before it reached her. Vivian helped her carry the suitcase, not because she agreed, because love sometimes had to stand beside a decision it hated. In the car to the station, neither of them spoke much. Osaka passed outside the window in morning light. Shops opening, bicycles gliding by, office workers moving with practiced urgency, a mother adjusting her child's backpack at a crossing. The city continued as if nothing precious was being abandoned inside a black car. At the station, Vivian walked her to the platform. I can manage, Marguerite said. I know. I am not fragile. I know. You are still coming? Yes. Fine. The suitcase wheels clicked over the floor. Announcements chimed overhead. People flowed around them with coffee, bags, phones, destinations. Marguerite looked at the departure board. The train would take her to the airport connection. From there, the flight home. Home. The word should have steadied her. It pressed against her ribs instead. On the platform, Vivian stopped. You can still call him. No. You can send one message. If I send a message, I will explain. If I explain, I will soften. If I soften, I will stay. Vivian's mouth trembled. And maybe staying is not the worst thing. No, Marguerite said quietly. But staying while terrified might make me punish him for a world he did not create. I will not do that to him. Vivian looked at her sister, and grief softened the edges of her anger. You love him! Marguerite looked away. The train arrived before she had to answer. The doors opened. Passengers stepped off. Others stepped in. Vivian pulled her into a hard embrace. This is not over. You do not know that. Yes, Vivian whispered. I do. Marguerite stepped back. Do not meddle. Vivian gave her a look. I will try to respect your boundaries while resenting them. That is the most honest thing you have said all week. Go before I embarrass us both. Marguerite boarded. The train was clean, quiet, half full. She found a window seat and placed her suitcase beside her legs. Vivian stood outside on the platform, arms folded, chin lifted, refusing to cry in public out of pure stubbornness. Marguerite lifted her hand. Vivian lifted hers. The doors stayed open. 1 minute, then another. Marguerite looked down at her phone. No message to Itoshi, no goodbye, no explanation. The absence sat in her palm like a stone. She opened their message thread. His last message was still there. You are not a problem to me, and you are not alone. Her thumb hovered. She typed, I am sorry, and deleted it. Typed, I had to leave. Deleted it. Typed, please understand. Deleted that too. Because he would understand. That was the worst part. She locked the phone. Outside, Vivian suddenly turned her head. Her body stiffened. Marguerite followed her gaze. At the far end of the platform, a man in a dark coat moved through the crowd with disciplined urgency. Itoshi! Marguerite's heart stopped. For one impossible second, every reason she had built collapsed. The articles, the children, Raymond, the board, the fear, all of it fell away, and there was only the man from the wrong train, moving toward her with a face too controlled to hide the pain beneath it. The warning chime sounded. The doors began to close. Marguerite stood, too late. Itoshi saw her. She saw him. The glass slid between them. The doors sealed shut. For the first time since she had known him, Itoshi Nakamura looked powerless. Not weak, powerless. The chairman who could move meetings, silence rooms, redirect cars, trace threats, and make an entire board nervous could do nothing against a train door already closed. Marguerite stood inside. He stood outside. Neither spoke. There was nothing to say that the glass would not ruin. He did not pound on the door. He did not demand that it open. He did not try to make a scene. He simply lifted one hand toward the glass, not waving, not asking, just reaching as far as dignity allowed. Marguerite's hand rose halfway, then stopped. If she touched the glass, she would break. So she held his gaze. She let him see the tears. That much she could give. The train moved, slowly at first. Itoshi walked one step alongside it, then another, not chasing, just refusing to look away until movement made refusal useless. Vivian stood behind him, with one hand pressed to her mouth. The platform stretched, blurred, slipped away. Itoshi grew smaller and smaller in the window. Then he was gone. Marguerite sat before her knees could fail. No one in the train car looked at her too openly. That was mercy. She turned toward the window as Osaka disappeared into tracks, tunnels, light, and distance. She had thought leaving would feel like reclaiming herself. Instead, it felt like leaving part of herself standing on the platform. By the time Marguerite reached Atlanta, exhaustion had become a second skin. Her children met her at the airport. Aisha reached her first, arms around her before Marguerite could fully clear arrivals. "Mom, I'm home," Marguerite whispered. Aisha pulled back, eyes wet. "You're home." Denise hugged her next, tight and trembling. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. Marguerite held her. "Oh, baby. I was scared." "I know. I sounded like Dad." Marguerite closed her eyes. The wound flinched, then softened. "You sounded like my child trying not to lose me." Malcolm came last. He hugged her hard, one hand at the back of her head, like he could shield her from the world retroactively. "You good, Ma?" "I am now," Marguerite lied. He pulled back and looked at her. "Don't do that." She smiled sadly. "I am trying to be better." The grandchildren were waiting at her house. They attacked in waves. Nia cried. Caleb asked if she brought snacks, then clung to her waist. Jade said, "You look tired," with the accusing tenderness of a teenager who loved deeply and disguised it badly. Miles asked about the trains. Zuri handed her a drawing of a garden with Grandma wearing a crown. Eli, the one who had joked about her falling in love in Japan, stood back with guilty eyes. Marguerite opened one arm. He rushed into it. "I'm sorry," he mumbled. "For what?" "I joked about love, and then people were mean." Marguerite held him close. "Oh, sweetheart, you did not cause cruelty by being playful." He hugged her tighter. The house was loud, warm, full. Aisha had stocked the fridge. Denise had cleaned the kitchen. Malcolm had mowed the lawn. Someone had watered the garden badly. Everything was familiar. Everything was hers. So why did it feel smaller? That evening, after everyone left, Marguerite stood at her back door and looked into the garden. The roses were still blooming. The basil had survived. The tomato plants leaned in a way that suggested Malcolm had watered them with good intentions and poor technique. The little bird bath sat crooked near the path, just as it always had. This was her life. Her beautiful, ordinary, hard-won life. She had built it after heartbreak. She loved it. She was grateful for it. But gratitude, she was beginning to learn, could exist beside longing, and longing had followed her home. For days, Marguerite tried to settle back into herself. She went to church. She cooked. She answered careful questions. She laughed with the grandchildren. She watered the garden. She made tea in the mornings and sat at the kitchen table where she had paid bills, helped with homework, folded laundry, and rebuilt her dignity one ordinary day at a time. But peace did not return the way she expected. The house was quiet at night, not peaceful. Quiet. There was a difference. Peace had presence. This quiet had absence. At unexpected moments, she would remember Itoshi sitting beside her on the train, not mocking her confusion. She would remember his voice in the garden. I read your heart before I knew your face. She would remember the station. His hand lifted to the glass, the train pulling away. She thought leaving Osaka would make her feel like herself again. Instead, it revealed that the self she had returned to was not the same woman who had left Atlanta with practical shoes and no expectations. One afternoon, while she was in the garden pretending to prune roses and actually staring at them, Miles watched her from the porch. Grandma. Yes, baby? Why do you keep staring at flowers without pruning them? Marguerite looked down. The rose branch in her hand did, in fact, need pruning. I was thinking. You have been thinking a lot. That happens when people get older. Miles considered this. Is it about the man from Japan? Marguerite froze. On the porch steps, Zuri lifted her head from her coloring book. Did he make you happy? The question entered the garden softly, too softly. Marguerite looked at her grandchildren. Their faces were open, curious, gentle in the unfiltered way children could be when adults had not yet taught them to make tenderness complicated. She could have laughed it away. She could have said, "Don't be silly." She could have hidden behind age, dignity, family, caution, and every safe answer she had perfected over the years. Instead, she looked at the roses. Then she looked back at them. Yes, she said quietly. He did. Zuri smiled. Miles nodded as if confirming a fact. Then why did you leave? Marguerite looked toward the fence. Because I was afraid. Because being happy had become dangerous. Because I did not know how to be seen without preparing to lose something. Because I thought leaving would hurt less than staying and discovering I was foolish. But she did not say that to them. Not yet. I thought I was protecting something, she said. Miles frowned. Did it work? Marguerite's eyes filled. No, she whispered. I do not think it did. 2 days later, the package arrived from Japan. It came in the afternoon when the house was quiet and Marguerite was in the kitchen making tea. The delivery man handed her a flat parcel and asked for a signature. There was no sender name, only a return address in Japan. Her hands became very still. She carried the package to the kitchen table. For a full minute, she did not open it. Then she washed her hands, dried them, sat down, and carefully removed the wrapping. Inside was a cream archival box tied with a narrow ribbon. No flowers, no jewelry, no expensive display, just care. Marguerite untied the ribbon and lifted the lid. Her breath stopped. Inside, protected beneath a clear sleeve, lay the original letter she had written 15 years ago. St. Catherine's Heart Center letterhead. Her handwriting, her name. Marguerite Elise Sydney, RN. Beside it was a handwritten note from Itoshi. She picked it up. Marguerite, I kept your word safe before I knew I would one day want to keep you safe. The sentence blurred immediately. She pressed one hand to her mouth. There were sentences designed to impress. Sentences designed to seduce. Sentences designed to decorate a feeling without requiring responsibility. This was not one of them. This sentence had roots. It said, before your face, your heart mattered. It said, before scandal, your life had already touched mine. It said, before I wanted you, I honored what came from you. Marguerite lowered the note to the table and cried, not dramatically, not beautifully. Quiet tears fell onto the kitchen table in the house she had built after heartbreak. For years, Raymond had lived beside her and let her disappear. Itoshi had received one letter and kept it for 15 years. The difference did not flatter her. It exposed her. Because now she could no longer pretend this was only about loneliness. This was about recognition. And recognition, once received, was difficult to unknow. She read the note again, then again. By the third time, something inside her defenses gave way, not all at once, just enough for hope to enter without asking permission. That evening, Raymond came by. He did not call first. Of course he did not. Marguerite saw his car from the kitchen window and felt her whole body become tired. Not afraid, not even angry. Tired. He stepped onto the porch, wearing a pale blue shirt, and the face of a man who had rehearsed concern until it sounded noble. She opened the door but did not invite him in. Raymond, you're home. Yes. I wanted to check on you. You have. His mouth tightened. Can we talk? We are talking. He looked past her into the house he had once lived in, the house that had become more hers after he left than it had ever been while he stayed. I saw more online, he said. I assumed. It is slowing down now. Yes, that is good. Is that why you came? He looked at her. I came because I was worried. No, Raymond, you came because you are bothered. I am not bothered. You walked onto my porch uninvited to tell me you are not bothered. His face hardened. Why do you turn everything into a confrontation now? Now? You were not like this before. Marguerite studied him. Before. The place where Raymond kept the version of her that was easier to manage. No, she said softly. Before, I swallowed more. The sentence landed. His eyes flickered. She stepped onto the porch and closed the door behind her. She would not let him bring old ghosts into her kitchen. Raymond looked toward the garden. So it is over. Marguerite followed his gaze. What? You and that man. Her face did not change. That is none of your business. I was your husband for 31 years, and then you were not. That does not mean I stopped caring. No, she said. It means caring no longer gives you authority. Raymond's jaw tightened. His eyes moved over her face, searching for the woman who would soften the sentence for his comfort. She did not appear. You have changed, he said. Yes. I do not know who you are trying to impress. Marguerite almost smiled. Still thinking my life is a performance for men? His face flushed. That is not what I meant. It often wasn't, according to you. He looked away. Then the mask slipped. Just enough. Do you know what this has been like for me? There it was. The real reason, not worry, pride. Marguerite let the silence answer first. Raymond continued. People asking questions, old friends sending links, church members acting like they are concerned but really wanting details. My name dragged near yours because you decided to become involved in some public fantasy with a man you barely know. Marguerite's voice remained calm. You are embarrassed. I am concerned. No, you are embarrassed that people saw me desired by a man you cannot dismiss. His eyes snapped to hers. You think that is what this is? Yes. You think he desires you? The old cruelty rose in his tone before he could dress it properly. Marguerite felt the wound open, but this time she did not step inside it. Raymond laughed once, bitter and small. You were never this interesting when you were my wife. The sentence hit the porch like a slap. For a moment, everything went still. The air, the garden, the old version of Marguerite. There it was, the heart of him. He had not come because she was hurt. He had come because another man had seen value where Raymond had trained himself to see familiarity. And instead of grieving what he failed to cherish, he accused her of becoming interesting too late. Old Marguerite would have collapsed inward. Old Marguerite would have heard the sentence for years. Old Marguerite would have wondered whether marriage had made her dull, whether motherhood had swallowed her, whether age had made romance ridiculous, whether Raymond's disinterest had been proof instead of failure. This Marguerite did not. This Marguerite stood on her porch with soil under her nails, a letter from Japan on her kitchen table, grandchildren who had asked whether love made her happy, and a heart that had finally remembered its own name. She looked at him fully. No, Raymond, she said. Her voice was calm, clean, final. You were never interested enough to notice. Raymond went still. The words did not shout. They did not need to. They stood. Marguerite continued, I was interesting when I laughed too loudly in restaurants, and you looked embarrassed. His face changed. I was interesting when I wore colors you called too much because you did not want anyone else seeing what you had stopped seeing. Marguerite. I was interesting when I came home from 12-hour shifts and still listened to your day because love to me meant paying attention. He looked away, but she was not finished. I was interesting when I raised our children, prayed through your silences, forgave things you never fully confessed, and kept making a home out of whatever pieces you left behind. Her voice softened. That made it worse. You did not lose interest because I became dull. You lost interest because noticing me would have required gratitude. Raymond swallowed. You stopped looking, she said. Then you blame me for becoming unseen. For once, Raymond had no ready answer. No accusation. No, you're being dramatic. No, that is unfair. Only silence. Marguerite watched him absorb a truth he should have carried years ago. I did not know you felt that way, he said quietly. Marguerite gave him a sad smile. Yes, you did. He flinched. You just trusted me not to say it. A long silence passed. The porch, the garden, the old marriage, the new woman she had become. All of it stood between them. Finally, Raymond said, Does he know what he is getting? Marguerite looked toward the kitchen window, where the package from Japan waited on the table. Yes, she said. I think he knows more than you did. Raymond's face tightened. Then, for the first time, he looked less powerful than the memory of him. He looked like a man standing outside a house he no longer had keys to. Marguerite opened the door. You should go. Marguerite? No. One word. Enough. Raymond nodded once, stiffly, and walked back to his car. Marguerite closed the door, then leaned against it. Her heart pounded. Her hands shook. But not from fear, from release. The body sometimes trembled when it set down a burden it had carried so long it mistook the weight for bone. She went back to the kitchen table. The letter waited. The note waited. Her own handwriting waited. Marguerite sat down and read Itoshi's words again. I kept your words safe before I knew I would one day want to keep you safe. For the first time, she did not tell herself it was too much. She did not tell herself she was too old. She did not tell herself the world was too cruel. She did not tell herself hope was foolish because it had arrived late. Instead, she opened her laptop. The screen lit her face in the dim kitchen. For several minutes, she did not type. Then her fingers moved. Atlanta to Osaka. The search results appeared. Departure times, layovers, prices, possibilities. Marguerite stared at the screen. She did not book the flight yet, not that night, but she searched. And for Marguerite Sydney, a woman who had spent years confusing caution with safety, searching was not small. Searching was a door. Searching was a confession. Searching was the first honest step back toward the man who had kept her word safe before he knew he would one day want to keep her safe. Outside, the garden moved gently in the night. Inside, hope sat beside her, not as a mistake, not as a scandal, not as a young woman's fantasy that should have known better, as something old enough to have roots and alive enough to grow. In Japan, the scandal did not fade. It sharpened. What had begun as a stolen photograph became something more useful in the hands of ambitious men. A weapon. The train picture had shown a woman laughing beside Itoshi Nakamura. The articles had turned her into a mystery. The public had turned her into a debate. But inside Nakamura Global Holdings, the board turned her into an argument. That was how the real violence began. Not online, not in comments, not through strangers with cruel jokes and half-formed opinions. In a boardroom, with polished wood, controlled voices, expensive watches, legal phrases, and men who knew how to make greed sound like responsibility. They did not say, "We want control." They said, "We are concerned about stability." They did not say, "The chairman's heart has become inconvenient." They said, "Recent personal developments raise questions about judgment." They did not say, "Marguerite Sydney is useful because the world will judge her before it knows her." They said, "The optics are unfortunate." By the time the emergency board session was called, Itoshi Nakamura had already read the agenda 3 times. He stood in his office above Osaka, looking down at the city that had given him Marguerite, taken her, and left her name burning through every corridor of his empire. Hiro stood behind him with a tablet. His face was composed, as always. But Itoshi had known Hiro too long not to hear worry in silence. "Director Sagawa has secured enough support to force a governance review," Hiro said. Itoshi did not turn. "Of course he has. He is framing it as concern for succession stability." "It is not." "No. He wants interim authority." "Yes. Through Kenji." Hiro paused. "Yes." That was the word that reached Itoshi. Not Sagawa, not board, not authority. Kenji, his son, his firstborn, the boy who once clutched Yuriko's sleeve at a hospital door and pretended not to be afraid. The man who had grown into discipline so rigid it confused tenderness with danger. Itoshi closed his eyes briefly. "He believes he is protecting the company." "Yes." "And his mother." Hiro said nothing. That silence answered. Itoshi opened his eyes. The city reflected in the glass. Bright and indifferent. "Emmy?" "She is conflicted." "That means she is seeing." "Yes." Itoshi looked toward the desk. His phone lay there. Marguerite had not sent another message. He had no right to expect one. She had returned home. She had chosen distance. He had promised not to mistake departure for rejection, but discipline did not make longing painless. A weaker man might have called. A selfish man might have used his collapse of privacy, the worsening headlines, the growing pressure, to pull her back through guilt. Itoshi had not. He had sent the letter. The original. Her letter. The one he had kept for 15 years because a nurse in Atlanta had written that mercy remained after money was spent. That was all he allowed himself. Proof, not pressure. But the board had not left her in peace. Even with Marguerite across the ocean, they kept reaching for her. Her name appeared in every briefing now. Every whisper, every calculated sentence. Mrs. Sydney, the American woman, the retired nurse, the foreign companion, the distraction, the risk, the problem. Itoshi's hand curled at his side. "She was never the problem," he said. Hiro looked up. "No chairman." but they require her to be. Yes, then let us remove the requirement. The boardroom was full by noon. It always amazed Itoshi how clean betrayal looked when given enough money. The long black table gleamed. The city stretched behind glass. Every chair was placed at an exact distance from the next. The room looked orderly, civilized, respectable, as if a man's life could not be dismantled there, as if a woman's dignity had not already been dragged across that table without her consent. Kenji sat halfway down the left side, not beside Sagawa. That was deliberate. Kenji still believed distance meant independence. Itoshi noticed. He also noticed the tightness in his son's jaw, the lack of sleep under his eyes, the grief beneath the strategy. Kenji was not cruel by nature. That made his error more painful. Cruel men were easy to oppose. Frightened sons were harder. Emmy stood at the back of the room. She had not been invited. She had come anyway. Her face was pale, but her chin was lifted. Her eyes moved between her father, her brother, and the board with the haunted attention of a woman realizing that family wounds could be used by strangers if left unnamed. Sagawa sat near the far end of the table. Silver hair, perfect suit, concerned expression, the kind of expression men wore when they had already sharpened the knife and wanted praise for holding it calmly. Itoshi entered last. The board stood. Even Sagawa. Power still had memory. Itoshi took his seat at the head of the table. "Begin," he said. No greeting, no warmth, no wasted time. Sagawa inclined his head. "Chairman Nakamura, thank you for attending this difficult but necessary discussion." "Necessary for whom?" The room tightened. Sagawa's smile did not change. "For the company." "Proceed." A presentation appeared on the wall. Governance Stability and Executive Confidence Review. Itoshi almost admired the dullness of it. Betrayal, when properly formatted, could bore a victim before it wounded him. Sagawa began with numbers: market anxiety, shareholder concern, media movement, succession speculation. Then came the photograph, the train, Marguerite laughing. Itoshi turned toward her. Their stolen second enlarged on the wall. The room shifted. Some directors looked embarrassed. Some looked hungry. Some looked relieved, as if the image gave them permission to say what they had already decided. Itoshi did not look at the photograph for long. He looked at the faces watching it. That told him more. Sagawa continued. "Chairman Nakamura, no one wishes to intrude into private matters." "Then stop!" A flicker passed through the room. Sagawa's voice remained smooth. Unfortunately, when private matters begin to affect public confidence, the board has a duty to respond. Public confidence was not damaged by a photograph. It was damaged by whoever fed that photograph to the media and called cowardice concern. Kenji's eyes flicked up. Sagawa's smile thinned. The photograph itself is only one factor. The greater concern is the pattern. What pattern? Unusual scheduling changes, missed governance calls, delayed decisions, defensive reactions to simple questions, a sudden attachment to a woman whose background remains unclear. Itoshi's eyes cooled. "Say her name." Sagawa paused. "Pardon?" "If you intend to use her as evidence, have the courage to say her name." Silence. Sagawa's jaw tightened. "Mrs. Marguerite Sydney." Itoshi leaned back slightly. "Better." Kenji looked down. Emmy's eyes moved to her father. Sagawa continued. "Mrs. Sydney may be entirely innocent in intention." "Innocent in intention," Itoshi repeated. "Yes, but whether or not she intends harm, her presence has created instability during a sensitive transition." Itoshi's gaze moved to Kenji. His son stiffened. "Kenji," Itoshi said. The room turned toward him. Kenji drew in a slow breath. He had prepared for this. He had rehearsed. He had told himself his words were necessary. He had told himself the company could not depend on sentiment. He had told himself his mother's legacy required discipline. Yet when he looked at his father, the rehearsed sentences felt less clean than they had in Sagawa's office. Still, he spoke. The concern is not whether Mrs. Sydney is personally malicious. Generous, Emmy whispered from the back. Kenji ignored her. The concern is whether the chairman's recent decisions indicate emotional compromise. His public association with Mrs. Sydney has created reputational exposure. His refusal to separate personal feeling from corporate obligation has intensified the issue. Itoshi did not interrupt. That was worse. Kenji forced himself to continue. I believe temporary safeguards may be necessary until the situation stabilizes. The words landed. Temporary safeguards. A polished phrase, a soft glove over a hard intention. Step aside. Let others control the empire. Let your son hold the door while your enemies enter. Itoshi looked at Kenji for a long moment. Then he turned back to the board. Is that what this is? No one answered. A son's fear packaged as governance? Kenji's face tightened. Father. No, Itoshi said. If we are speaking of emotional compromise, let us speak honestly. Sagawa leaned forward. That is precisely what we are asking for. Itoshi stood. Hiro, near the wall, looked sharply at him. Itoshi ignored him. The room held its breath. She did not make me weak, Itoshi said. No one moved. She reminded me I was still alive. The sentence entered the room like a crack of thunder without sound. Emmy's hand went to her mouth. Kenji stared at his father. Sagawa's expression flickered. Itoshi continued, voice calm but carrying every inch of the room. You call Marguerite Sydney a distraction because you do not know how to measure anything that does not ask permission from profit. You call her influence because you cannot imagine a man choosing tenderness without being manipulated. You call her risk because a woman outside your control frightens you more than corruption inside this room. Sagawa's eyes hardened. Chairman, this only confirms the concern. You are defending her as though she is a person? The room went silent. Itoshi's voice lowered. She is a person, not a board item, not an article, not a risk category, not a foreign companion, not a late life embarrassment, not a tool for men too afraid to attack me directly. Kenji swallowed. The words struck him harder than he expected. Itoshi looked toward the projected photograph. Her laugh was taken without consent. Her name was used without honor. Her age, race, profession, divorce, and motherhood were arranged into suspicion by people who needed the public to look at her so they would not look at you. His gaze returned to Sagawa. You believed my affection made me vulnerable. Sagawa said nothing. You misunderstood affection. Itoshi's hand pressed against the table. For the first time, a faint tightness moved across his face. Hiro noticed. Chairman, he said quietly. Itoshi lifted one hand slightly. Not yet. He was not finished, but his body had begun to object. Days of stress, lack of sleep, anger held too carefully, medication taken but not respected, recovery not yet required because collapse had not yet forced it. His chest tightened, heavy, wrong. He inhaled slowly. No one else seemed to notice. Emmy did. So did Hiro. Kenji saw Hiro move and then saw his father's hand gripping the table edge. Father? Itoshi kept his eyes on the board. I will not deny her to comfort cowards, he said. His voice remained steady, too steady. I will not apologize because life reached me after grief. I will not let this company become so afraid of my humanity that it mistakes cruelty for discipline. The room blurred at the edges. He hated that. His body had obeyed him through worse things. Through Yuriko's illness. Through funerals. Through hostile negotiations. Through nights when grief sat beside him like another director at the table. Now, in front of men like Sagawa, it chose rebellion. The pressure in his chest deepened. He tried to straighten. Failed. Hiro moved first. "Chairman!" Emmy cried out, "Father!" Kenji rose so quickly his chair hit the floor behind him. Itoshi heard the sound from far away. The boardroom tilted. For one brief second, before the floor rose toward him, he saw Marguerite's letter in his mind. Cream paper, firm handwriting. The heart is stubborn. Then the chairman fell. In Atlanta, Marguerite Sydney was in her garden when her phone rang. She almost ignored it. The roses had needed attention all morning, and she had finally stopped pretending to prune while thinking about Japan. Her gardening gloves were dirty. Her hair was tied back loosely. Itoshi's note was folded carefully in the pocket of her apron. She had told herself it was ridiculous to carry it around. Then she had carried it anyway. The phone rang again. Vivian. Marguerite pulled off one glove. "Hello?" There was only breath on the other end. That was enough. Her body changed before her heart could panic. Nurse first, woman second. "Vivian." "Marguerite." "What happened?" "Listen to me." "No. Tell me." A pause. Then Vivian's voice cracked. Itoshi collapsed. The garden disappeared, not physically. The roses were still there. The sun still touched the back of her neck. The soil remained beneath her feet. But everything inside Marguerite dropped. "What?" "He was in a board meeting. They were pressuring him. Hiro called me because he did not know whether to call you directly, and I told him if he ever made that mistake again, I would personally—" "Vivian!" Her voice cut through the line. Sharp, clinical, ready. Vivian stopped. He collapsed. They took him to the hospital. He was breathing. He was alive when they transported him. Marguerite was already moving toward the house. Was he conscious? I do not know. Chest pain? I do not know. Known cardiac history? Marguerite. Find out. I will. Which hospital? Vivian gave the name. Marguerite repeated it back. Who was with him? Hiro, Kenji, Emmy, doctors? Private cardiac team. Good. She entered the kitchen, put the phone on speaker, and opened her laptop. Her hands moved fast. Passport, medication, wallet, charger, travel documents. The frightened woman in her tried to speak. Wait. Think. This is too much. You left for a reason. You cannot keep crossing oceans because your heart hurts. But the retired cardiac nurse rose first. The woman who had heard families scream in waiting rooms and still found the medication chart. The woman who knew fear was not useless, but it could not be allowed to drive. The woman who had spent 38 years walking toward alarms. She opened the airline website, Atlanta to Osaka, earliest flight. Vivian's voice came through the speaker. What are you doing? What does it sound like? You're coming? Marguerite did not hesitate. Yes. Vivian made a broken sound, half sob, half prayer. Okay. I need updates, real updates, not polished rich man dignity updates. I need status, diagnosis, cardiac rhythm, consciousness, blood pressure, any chest pain, medications, and whether he is refusing rest. Vivian sniffed. I have never loved nurse mode more. Do not get emotional. Get information. I can multitask. Marguerite clicked the earliest flight. Long, expensive, several connections. She did not care. She entered the details. Her hand trembled once at payment. Only once. Then she pressed confirm. Booked. Screen. This time, it did not look like escape. It looked like decision. Her phone buzzed. Aisha, then Denise, then Malcolm. News traveled quickly when fear had daughters. Marguerite answered Aisha first. Mom, I'm going back. No preamble, no explanation. Aisha went quiet. Then she said, Good. Marguerite closed her eyes. Aisha, Good, Mom. Go. I do not know what I am walking into. You know who you are. The sentence reached places inside Marguerite that had been shaking. Aisha's voice trembled but did not break. You are not going because he chased you. You are not going because people pressured you. You are not going because you are lonely. Marguerite pressed one hand to the kitchen counter. You are going because you chose to. Marguerite swallowed. Yes. Denise arrived within 40 minutes with compression socks, travel wipes, snacks, a black cardigan, and the kind of organized repentance only eldest daughters could produce. I told you to come home because I was afraid, Denise said, setting everything on the kitchen table. I am not making that mistake twice. Marguerite looked at her daughter. Denise? No. I am still scared. I do not trust his world. I do not trust the board. I do not trust the people who hurt you. Her eyes filled. But I trust you. Marguerite pulled her into her arms. Denise held on tightly. I trust you, she whispered again. Malcolm arrived next with the car already running. He carried her suitcase downstairs and checked the zipper twice. Then he stood in front of her, broad shoulders tense, face tight. Ma? Yes. Is he worth it? The kitchen went silent. Aisha was on speaker. Denise stood nearby, wiping her face. Marguerite thought of Itoshi on the train, in the garden, at the station, in the letter, in every silence where he had respected her freedom more carefully than some men respected vows. Yes, she said. Malcolm nodded once. Then let's go. At the airport, the goodbye was different this time. No one clung to her like they were rescuing her from danger. They stood around her like witnesses. Denise fixed her cardigan. Aisha held her hand until the last moment. Malcolm kissed her forehead. Call when you land, Denise said. I will. Do not shrink, Aisha said. Marguerite smiled through tears. I will try not to. No, Denise said. Do not. Malcolm nodded toward security. Go get your man, Ma. Malcolm? What? Somebody had to say it. For the first time that day, Marguerite laughed. Then she walked toward the gate. On the plane, she did not sleep. Somewhere between America and Japan, she opened her travel journal. For a long time, she listened to the hum of the aircraft and the quiet breathing of strangers around her. Then she wrote, I left because I was afraid of becoming a scandal. She paused, then added, I am returning because fear does not get to make the final decision. Her hand trembled slightly. She continued, I do not know if this is love yet. Maybe it is. Maybe it is the beginning of something too honest to name quickly. But when I heard he had fallen, every argument disappeared except one. She stopped, breathed, then wrote one word. Go. By the time Marguerite landed in Osaka, her body ached with travel and exhaustion. Her eyes were tired. Her hair needed attention. Her face showed every hour she had crossed to get there. She did not care. At Kansai International Airport, she stepped through arrivals with practical shoes, her travel journal, her medicine, and no more illusions that she had come as a tourist. Vivian was waiting beyond the barrier. The moment she saw Marguerite, she burst into tears. Marguerite walked into her arms. You came back, Vivian whispered. Yes. For him? Marguerite pulled back. Her face was tired, beautiful, and clear. For me first. Vivian's smile broke. And then? Marguerite looked beyond the airport glass, toward the city waiting outside. Somewhere in Osaka, Itoshi Nakamura was alive, stubborn, recovering, surrounded by enemies, family, doctors, and consequences. This time, she was not on the wrong train. This time, she had chosen the direction herself. And then, she said softly, for the man who reminded me I was still alive, too. Outside, a black car waited. Hiro stood beside it. When Marguerite approached, he bowed deeply. Mrs. Sydney. Hero. His eyes were composed. Almost. The chairman does not know you are here. Good. His brows lifted slightly. Marguerite adjusted her bag on her shoulder. I would like to see his face before he has time to arrange his dignity. For one beautiful second, Hero almost smiled. Then he opened the car door. As you wish. The hospital did not frighten Marguerite. That surprised people who did not know her. Hospitals frightened many people. The bright floors, the quiet urgency, the smell of antiseptic, coffee, flowers, and fear. The waiting rooms where families became temporary citizens of a country no one wanted to visit. But Marguerite had lived in that country for 38 years. She knew its language. She knew the difference between a nurse walking fast and a nurse walking too fast. She knew the difference between a doctor's careful voice and a doctor's comforting one. She knew that machines made noise whether hope was present or not. So when Hero led her to the private cardiac wing, Marguerite did not tremble. She adjusted her cardigan, touched the gold cross at her neck, and walked forward. At the end of the hallway, the Nakamura family was waiting. Kenji stood near the window, suit jacket off, phone in hand, jaw tight. Emmy sat on a cream sofa, eyes red but dry. Both looked up when Marguerite entered. Shock moved through the room, then alarm, then something sharper on Kenji's face. What is she doing here? Vivian stepped forward. Marguerite lifted one hand. Vivian! Her sister stopped, though not happily. Hero said, Mrs. Sydney arrived from America. I can see that, Kenji snapped. Marguerite studied him. He looked exhausted, afraid, too controlled to admit either. This is not a good time, he said. I agree, Marguerite replied. Kenji blinked. Men generally do not collapse during good times. Emmy's eyes widened. Hero looked down. Vivian pressed her lips together. Kenji stiffened. That is not what I meant. I know what you meant. You should not be here. Marguerite took one step forward, not dramatic, not pleading, simply forward. I understand you are frightened. Kenji's face hardened. I am not frightened. Yes, you are. The words landed, not cruelly, clinically. You are frightened for your father, frightened for your family name, frightened for the company, frightened because the man you have spent your life believing could not fall did exactly that in front of people who were ready to use it. Kenji said nothing. That was something. Marguerite continued, I did not come here to create a scene. I did not come here to claim a place in your family. I did not come to speak to the press, embarrass your father, or make your mother's memory smaller. Emmy's face changed. Marguerite saw it. Kept going. I came because I was told a 65-year-old man with a history of exhaustion and irregular rhythm collapsed during a high-stress board meeting after days of public pressure. Her voice remained calm. I came because I'm a retired cardiac nurse, and before I was a headline in your world, I spent 38 years knowing when a heart needed protection from the people asking too much of it. The hallway went still. Kenji stared at her. She did not look away. If your father does not want to see me, I will leave this hospital. If his doctors say my presence is harmful, I will leave this floor. If he is sleeping, I will wait. She took another step. But you will not block me because you are embarrassed that the woman you called a vulnerability got on a plane faster than some of his board members managed to develop a conscience. Vivian whispered, Lord have mercy. Emmy looked down, but Marguerite saw her mouth tremble. Kenji's face went hard, then stopped. Something in him had met a wall it could not push through. You speak as if you understand the situation, he said. I understand people, Marguerite replied. The situation is usually where they hide. Silence. Then Emmy stood. Mrs. Sydney. Marguerite turned to her. I am Emmy. Itoshi's daughter. I know. I am sorry we are meeting like this. So am I. The words were simple, but something softened between them. The doctor arrived minutes later, summoned by Hiro. Dr. Watanabe was calm, precise, and visibly relieved when he realized Marguerite understood medical language. Chairman Nakamura experienced a syncopal episode during acute stress, he explained. Initial tests do not indicate a major heart attack. There was transient irregular rhythm, elevated blood pressure before the collapse, then a drop. Severe exhaustion, dehydration, and stress response likely contributed. We are continuing monitoring. Marguerite listened without blinking. Chest pain? Pressure, according to his assistant. Hiro nodded. He denied pain but touched his chest twice. Marguerite's eyes narrowed. Of course he denied it. Dr. Watanabe almost smiled. Yes. Troponin repeated. Yes. Stable. Electrolytes? Corrected. Echo? This afternoon. Good. Kenji watched her, not as a headline now, as a woman who knew exactly what questions mattered. Dr. Watanabe continued. He needs rest. No stress. No business discussions. Kenji started. Doctor, certain corporate matters. No business discussions, Marguerite said. The room stopped. Kenji turned toward her. Excuse me? She looked at him with 38 years of nurses' stations, arrogant surgeons, anxious families, and men who thought their titles made their bodies exceptional. Your father did not collapse because the hospital hallway lacked corporate urgency, she said. Whatever you want from him can wait until his heart stops being treated like a boardroom appliance. Emmy covered her mouth. Vivian looked toward the ceiling like she was thanking God personally. Kenji stared at Marguerite. Then, to everyone's surprise, he did not argue. He looked away. He will not listen, Kenji said quietly. Marguerite's voice softened. Then give him fewer people to disobey. That landed. Dr. Watanabe allowed Marguerite a brief visit. The room was private, quiet, and too elegant to hide the truth. It was still a hospital room, machines, monitor, 4, a chair beside the bed. Itoshi lay with his eyes closed, one arm above the blanket, IV taped neatly to his hand. Without the boardroom, without the suit, without the quiet armor of power, he looked exactly what he was. A man, 65, exhausted, alive. Marguerite stopped just inside the door. The first time she had seen him, he had entered a dining room and changed the air. Now the room held him. That frightened her more. She walked to the bedside and checked the monitor before she could stop herself. Heart rate, blood pressure, rhythm, respiration, color. Old habit, old calling. Then she sat beside him. You are a very inconvenient man, she whispered. He did not respond. She folded her hands over her purse. I was not going to come back like this. I searched flights, you know, before Vivian called. I sat in my kitchen and searched like a woman trying to be brave without making it official. Her mouth trembled. I suppose collapsing in a board meeting was one way to end the debate. Dramatic, unnecessary, very masculine. His fingers moved, barely. Marguerite leaned forward. Itoshi? His eyelids shifted. Slowly, he opened his eyes. For a second, he looked at the ceiling, disoriented. Then his gaze moved. Found her. Everything in his face changed. Not dramatically, not loudly, as if the body recognized the person before the mind had arranged dignity. His lips parted. His voice came rough and low. You came back! Marguerite's throat tightened. She had prepared for many things. Not that. Not the wonder in his voice. Not the softness. Not the way 3 words could make every mile between Atlanta and Osaka collapse. She reached for his hand, then stopped. Permission. Always permission. He saw the movement. His palm opened on the bed. Invitation, not demand.
You did not steal me from my life. You made the walls grow wide. For the first time in 11 years, hope felt like the truth inside. They took our laughter from a train, turned my name into their shame, called me a storm, called me a scar, like age could hide a woman's heart. I ran back home to what I knew, but every rose remembered you. Then your letter found my door, and I could not be small anymore. I had been quiet, I had been erased, I had learned to call the silence grace. But you saw the woman I had left, still breathing in my chest.